not really uh, having those skills to conduct any research program. This is what the thought process is in general there in the teachers. But action research is little different than the regular research. So I would like to give you a brief about how the action research is different from the other researches. As you can see on my screen, there are 3 points in both the sections, so I would like to elaborate them. The general research, when we talk about research, when a research scholar for PhD work does, or a research institution will conduct any kind of research. So this research is basically to develop and test the educational theories when we talk about education, research in education field particularly. So when it comes to action research, it is just to find out solution to this specific concept or this specific problem which occurs in the school or in a particular class. So this is the major difference in between the other researches and the action research. Now here in the other researches, you can see that a wide range of methods are used to find out the research problems. Like there are quite a few methods. Those who have done their MPhil or PhD, or those who have conducted any kind of research program with some research institutes will understand what I'm saying, that it needs a lot of study before you begin, or before you state, or before you identify a research problem in general research in any kind of field, wherein the action research could be done by any teacher, any qualified teacher who is teaching in the class. So for her, the problem is identified during teaching and learning process. So we'll go into depth how the problems could be identified, which problems could be taken for action research. Any smallest problem could be identified to conduct an action research in the education. Considerably, the large sample size is taken when it comes to the other researches. Like probably you might have read some kind of titles of the thesis wherein the entire city is considered, the entire country is considered, a particular region is considered, and the samples means the people whom we are considering in the research is on a larger scale when it comes to the research program in any other field. When it comes to action research, the class students who are there present in the class will be taken as participants in the research, or they can be considered as sample in the particular action research program. So now you can understand how simple it is to carry out an action research, but we have to follow the steps to conduct any kind of action research program. Particularly, the school teachers can very well conduct the action research program thoughtfully if they follow the steps. So moving ahead, I would like to explain the steps of action research. Drafting a research problem, like drafting really doesn't mean any kind of scientific statement to be drafted or something of that kind. You can actually identify a simple problem which you are facing in your classroom. For example, being a mathematics person, I'll quote one example throughout in my discussion, and later on we can discuss about the other subjects and the topics, action research problems, which we can derive in the other subject areas as well. In mathematics particularly, you might have observed or you might have heard that students find it difficult to solve the word problems or story problems. So what happens is, suppose if I'm a teacher in the class and I'm conducting some kind of test, and I find that there are quite a few children in my class, those who are going wrong in solving the word problems or story problems. So this is the general problem which I identify as a mathematics teacher. So I need to draft a sentence, draft a research problem in proper statement that mentioning about the exact number of students. So suppose if I have a class of 40 students and say 30 students are unable to solve the word problems. This is the finding which I get after conducting a test, class test. Then I can mention that 30 students out of 40 in my class are finding it difficult to solve the word problem. So it is as simple as that. Any teacher who is qualified to teach from class 1 to class, say 12 or so, or further as well, can identify such kind of problems in her own teaching area. Now, after this step, what happens is analysis where the students are going wrong needs to be identified. Like exactly which is the point where the students are going wrong. Now, I have stated the problem, taking ahead the same example of story problems or say word problems. I have identified that 30 students in my class out of 40 are unable to uh, solve the word problems or the story problems. So this is the statement which I have identified, but now I need to analyze where exactly the students are going wrong. So after going through the set of papers which I'm correcting, I get to understand, for example, that my children are unable to understand which operation to be done, whether it has to be addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. So this is the exact problem which I identify. The other example could be maybe children are not able to solve a particular, say, operation. Say, for example, if the word problem is based on addition of fractions and children are unable to add the fractions. So that could be some other example. But in my this example, I'll take the analysis as the children are unable to identify which operation they should go ahead for. Next step would be defining objectives of the research. Once I know that this is the exact problem where my children are facing, then I can define the objectives of the research. Objectives need not be lot many. You can have one or two objectives. Now, based on the example which I'm taking ahead, I identify that my children are facing problem in solving the word problems, particularly facing problem in identifying which operation to be done. So my objective for the research would be to make the story problems or word problems simpler to the students so that they will understand which operation they should do to solve the word problems. So this is my objective of the research. Now I need to find out what are the steps, how I can go ahead. So stepwise action plan with time limit has to be done by the teacher. Now this is again a simple task which any teacher can do. So first I identified the problem, I set the objectives. Now my action plan would be to train the students to find out how they can solve the word problems. But to train, that doesn't mean in a class, say for an hour or so, if I'm training the students, the problem will get resolved. It's not going to happen that way. So I need to think at the root level of the problem. So I know that they're not able to understand which keyword can guide them to identify the operation in mathematics. So what I can do is maybe my action plan will include one session wherein I can collect some words, some keywords, which could appear in the story problems or word problems, which will give them a hint which kind of operation they need to do. So this, I'm not going to give them the direct answer. I'm not going to write the things on the board, and I'm not going to give them direct vocabulary for that matter. So what I'm going to plan is I'm going to have a discussion with my class, and while discussing, I'm going to write down the words on the board. So this could be like discussion on, say, which word altogether means what, going back means what, counting further means what. So along with the students, I will make the vocabulary. That could be my step. You can identify your own steps. Your own creativity could be there while identifying, while planning or drafting an action plan. So second step in my action plan would be, after a day or so, I'll ask the students to carry their pocket dictionaries in the class, so that whenever I'm giving them story sums or word problems for the practice, students can refer the pocket dictionary if they're not able to understand the meaning of that. So one, they have vocabulary with them. Two, they are referring to the pocket dictionary to identify the meaning of that exact word which is coming into the word problems. Third step in my action plan, when they're referring to the dictionary, when they're referring to the word which is guiding them towards uh, solving the word problem, third step would be to underline that particular keyword and the numbers which are appearing in the say word problems. So this is my third action plan, third step in my action plan. Fourth step would be, I'm giving them a series of practice word problems. Say, for example, for every week, I'm keeping one lesson aside, which is devoted only for solving the story problems or word problems. So this is my action plan. So that could be one step. Next step would be solving those, like children will solve those word problems, and my job as a teacher will be to collect the data where my children are going wrong and how many children are able to solve the word problems with this solution which I have provided to them. So basically data collection doesn't mean a huge kind of data we need to capture from this. I will just make an Excel sheet wherein I'm entering their marks for every week whenever I'm conducting a test, whenever I'm giving them practice sessions. So I'm noting down. So this data is very, very important when it comes to action research. So I'm keeping the data with me, probably in soft copy, or if you find it very easy, you can note down in your teacher's diary, wherein you can refer to the data which you have captured. Next step could be, after capturing the data, I'm going to tabulate that properly. I will understand, I will study that data properly. How my children are going ahead. Are they able to understand? Is there any growth? Is there any advantage of my action plan, my steps, which I have given them, like 3-4 steps, which I stated just now? So is there any difference? Like week 1, where are my children standing? So out of 30, how many children are really able to understand? So probably not more than say 1 or 2 children. Then next week again, I will check how many children are able to understand the word problems. Considering that the previous set of children, those who have solved the word problems correctly, should again solve the problems correctly in the upcoming tests as well. It should not happen that those who are solving correct, again, they fall into the category of not understanding. So I will find out, I will study that data, and then I will come to a conclusion whether the intervention which I have done, whether the program which I had run, the action plan which I had executed has worked out or not. If not, then I can have my own creativity again to add on. But for sure, after this kind of intervention, the number 30 will be reduced at least by, say, 10, 12 or so. So I will have minimum number of students to whom I should focus now, and I can have a different strategy worked out for them. So this will be the action plan for my action research. And the execution has to be done with timeline perfectly. You should not miss out on any kind of time or any kind of schedule which you have planned. Now, this collecting of data means the Excel sheet or the rough data, which I was explaining just now. Apart from that, you can have the photographs. Suppose, for example, during my this research problem, I'm taking the students to visit the math lab. That also could be one of the steps in the action plan. So I can click the photographs for my reference. I'm keeping them with me. Then the feedback which I'm receiving from the students or from the parents will play an important role. Nowadays with technology, it becomes very easy. You can set a Google form, you can share it with the students, with the parents, and you can collect the feedback. Or a casual feedback could be collected in the classroom setup. Here you can have frequent parents meeting, again, it depends upon your way of handling the parents and the students. But if you are conducting some PTMs frequently to collect the feedback from the parents, it will be benefiting for you only, because you will understand how the children are able to understand how to solve the word problems. So parents feedback is one of the major feedbacks which you can collect, and accordingly you can move ahead. Probably you may get a feedback, right? For example, the children are able to understand what vocabulary, set of vocabulary you have collected and given them. But apart from this, if something comes up, then what my child should do. So these kind of feedbacks you can actually take seriously, and you can have some kind of alteration done in your action plan. This is allowed because this is not something which we are going to publish outside our school or outside our classroom. This is to solve the problem, the very problem which we are facing in the classroom situation. Review with a defined frequency is something very, very important. Checking if we are on the right track, because when you define the action plan, you have the steps in the action plan. Say for the month of June, you have these steps to be covered. So weekly once the test will be covered. Say weekly, monthly twice, you're connecting to the parents, or you divide the parents into different groups, and you have a schedule, particular schedule, that during this week I'm going to call these parents to ask how much their child is able to understand about this particular concept, or you want to have a PTM and discuss particularly about this problem. So it is up to you, but whatever frequency you have defined for whatever step, you have to review that and find out if you are on the right track. If you're not, then you can go back and correct that. The wonderful thing would be if you have a calendar with you. So on a particular date, you can write that this is the step of my action research, which I'm going to do. So that you are not missing out on any step and you are on the right track. Checking if we are on the right track and review of whatever we have done. The data could be in the form of numbers or description as well. At times it happens that the data is not only in the numbers, data is in the form of description as well. Like for example, out of these 30 students whom I'm talking about, these students are uh, like when I'm conducting a test, I find that there are two students who are able to connect the set of vocabulary which I have given them in the classroom. So during my rounds, when they're solving their question paper or the test paper, I understand that these two students are really benefiting and they're keeping in mind what vocabulary I have given them. So I can note down that. Or if I find that say 2 to 3 students in my class, when while writing the test, again they're stressed about how to solve the word problems, then I can make a note of it that these children are still finding it difficult. So this descriptive data also will help you. Being a subject teacher in that particular class, you will understand their psychology, where every child is standing, and accordingly you can tweak the action plan for that particular set of students. After the review is taken, after the data is collected, after we check whether we are standing on the right track or not, revisiting objectives is very important, because it should not happen that you are just going off track and you are not following you're not keeping the objective in mind. Uh, I can connect this with a simple example, like how we have goal in our life and we have very we are very focused on that particular goal, so that we are not getting diverted. So if my goal is to say, for example, if my goal is to be an engineer in my life, so I am not getting diverted. I'm not focusing on, say, medical sciences or any other fields. I'm just focusing on the subjects which are required for me to get admission in the field of engineering. So that way, as an action researcher, we should revisit the objective to check whether we are really achieving, we are trying to achieve the same objective, or we are going off track? Are we focusing particularly on the word problems, or we are focusing on some other problems? Then we can come to the conclusion, concluding if it has given the desired result. And recording the result is something very important, because unless and until you have the record, you will not understand whether you have achieved the results or not. Then you can actually compare that in the month of June, my children were standing here. In the month of July, my children have moved till here. Say 50% of them are able to do it. Now 50% are still there. I need to give more attention to them, or I can have some different strategy to be used. For example, I may decide that I can make these children wait after the school working hours, and I can give them a different kind of solution, different kind of explanation in mother tongue if they are unable to understand in English. So that could be my strategy. Your strategy could be different. Whenever the children are, say, going on the ground, these 2, 3 children whom you really want to have one-to-one interaction with could be there in the classroom. So you are working on that and you are moving towards the result. And whenever, as and when you see that there is some gap with some number of students, you are taking again an action to give them some kind of input, some intervention is done with them. But as and when you are doing that, please do not forget to record all these things which you are doing it stepwise, and the data about their tests, about their like your observations about them, so that you can share that with their parents as and when required. There is a very good concept called as PDCA cycle. Not only in the action research, in any case, in any activity, in any area in the school education, you can actually have this considered. PDCA, P is plan, do, check, and act. So whatever you are doing, some activity you are conducting, you can plan it properly with action plan, how we have done it now. Then do it. Do it in the sense, follow that, implement that with your timeline. Then next would be check, how we have revisited objectives, how we have seen the data, how we have seen in the previous slide that we need to understand whether we are on the right track or we are going off track. Are we following the same objectives or not? So this is checking the results. And then for the continual improvement, you are again finding out if there are any loopholes or if there is any scope for improvement, because this is never-ending process of improvement. We are in the field of education. We understand that we all have to be lifelong learners. So from here, you can have a thread taken further to plan your different activities. And again, you can plan that, check, do, check, and then again act upon it, find out if there are loopholes, again plan the upcoming activity. So this is what you can do during your research, action research as well.
Thanks a lot, Ms. Kanchan. As we are running out of time and we have some questions lined up, can we move on to the questions, please?
Sure.
Is it okay? Can you close your PPT and maximize your camera so that the audience can view? Thanks, ma'am. Yep. So the first question is, what is the current state of research in education in India? What are some leading topics of research going on?
Are we talking about action research particularly?
Yes, please.
Okay. So action research, as I mentioned about this example in the classroom situation, likewise, you can find the action researches in the field of discipline as well in the classroom. Children are talking too much, they are not able to concentrate. So this could be one area which I have seen, I have come across. In the field of social science also, there are action researches, because children usually find it difficult to write an elaborative answer, particularly say history answers, or they're unable to understand or keep in mind the timeline. So an action research is done on that as well, graphically how they can remember timeline. Or say, for example, in English, they're unable to read their diction is not very clear. So action research is done on that as well. So these are major areas which I have come across. Lot of data is available, lot of creative activities are available when you search on the search engines.
Sure, ma'am. So is research in education a neglected area of study?
Yes, till some extent I can see.
Okay. So what can individual schools do to contribute to research in education, ma'am?
As I mentioned earlier in the first point, that the teachers need not be a kind of researcher to conduct an action research program. If they understand the action plan, if they understand the steps, how to conduct it, if they are vigilant about their observations, they are very observant, then action research could be done. Probably what we can do is, in my school, what I do is, I have the departments, different subject departments. So I give them a target, like every subject department must have one action research program run. So in whichever class they feel like, suppose for example, in grade 6, if SST teachers feel that they're unable to understand how to remember the timeline, so they select that particular area. English, probably creative writing is the area which they find difficult in grade 9 or 10. They take up that topic. So this is continual improvement. So once the topic gets over, the other topic for the same from the same department will come ahead. So this can be done easily.
Okay. So is it a good idea for schools to publish a journal inviting teachers to share their reflections?
Yes.
So would this reflection be a good first step to further research, ma'am?
Yes, reflection could be, for example, when I'm talking about the same example, I can give you the word problems. So once I come to the conclusion that my children have understood how to solve the word problems, I can pick up a thread through PDCA cycle, uh, which can lead to having some kind of creative word problems framed. So
Okay.
it could be one more additional, like connecting research, action research area, you can say.
Okay. So what are some ways education research has contributed to Indian school education?
Uh, there are some schools who are actually focusing on research areas. There is a concept called as quality accreditation, if you might have heard about it. The schools in India are accredited by some boards, accreditation boards, wherein the action research or some research programs are very, very important. So it's an integral part of the educational system. You might have heard about NAC in universities. So when NAC accreditation is given to the universities, that there is an area which is mandatory, that research has to be done in the university or in the senior colleges. Likewise, NABIT is the board who accredited school in India. And as an integral part of accreditation process, they emphasize on conducting research program. So there are schools who are continuously conducting small researches, and this is a way how you can move ahead and correct the areas or fill up the gaps wherever they find.
Okay. So you have mentioned about some topics, but what according to you are some high priority topics for research?
It all depends upon the crowd whom you are catering to. For example, if you are a CBSE school, and according to CBSE, the children are supposed to write answers in their own words. So teachers need not dictate the answers. Say, for example, if they're writing answers in history, so it should not happen that they're copying the matter as it is from the textbook. So if the children are doing that, you can take that as an action research topic. Or say there is a school which is in the remote area, like not in the city, or they're having limited resources, wherein the action research topic could be reading any matter which is in English, their pronunciation, their understanding about English. Spoken English could be one of them. So it all depends upon the crowd whom you are catering to.
Okay. So what made you take an interest in education research, ma'am?
Actually, over the period when I was teaching, like I have played different roles in my career. So as a teacher, as an administrator, whenever I used to find few gaps. Like uh, there are gaps wherein the teacher is teaching same to all the 40 students, but all the 40 students are not able to understand the same way. So there are children who are not able to understand. There are children who are able to understand beyond that. They will go ahead and they will find out on their own some, extra information about the topic which is being discussed in the class. So, being a researcher, like being a PhD person, I was knowing about the research. So I was thinking how we can connect these small issues with the, by conducting some kind of research programs. Then while browsing, I got to understand that NCRT is actually focusing on action research in education. So I went ahead with that diploma, which gave me deeper insight about the program.
Okay. So what was your PhD, ma'am? What was it about?
My PhD was about child psychology.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So would you encourage school teachers to study further and perhaps do a PhD over the course of their career?
Yes. Actually, as I mentioned, the teacher has to be a lifelong learner. Otherwise, if she's thinking that I'm done and I have everything with me, so she becomes stagnant. If you remember the NEP, now NEP is focusing on teachers training as well. There are new concepts coming up. So as a teacher, I cannot stay behind with the concepts which are run till date. I cannot say that now I'm fully trained, so I don't want to accept the new reforms in the field of education. I have to go ahead, accept them. I have to train myself if I'm somewhere, not up to the mark. So this has to be done. Every teacher has to uh, be updated in her own field.
Okay. So which are some good institutions inside India for education research?
NCRT is one of them, very prominent. They have like they are working on researches. They give exposure to the teachers to run this action research program, the diploma. They have some diploma courses about teaching sciences in particular classes, teaching mathematics. There are online courses also, and there are quite a few institutions which uh, are coming up nowadays and training the teachers about how to include ICT while teaching your own subject. So there are institutions in India. So, and nowadays technology is so strong that we can find out on a click. So I
Right.
think teachers should find out the status of that particular institution, particular university, and enroll themselves in updating their qualifications.
Okay. Do you think there is a scope for improving the B.Ed course in India?
Yes, yes. More
So
practical.
what need to be added? What need to be done, ma'am? Like how can they improve? Because B.Ed course, I think like I'm not a B.Ed person, but at the time like when you did and right now, is there any difference or is there any scope for improving?
Certainly, scope is there for improvement. One, it has to be more practical oriented, like learning theoretically how a particular subject would be taught, and teaching particularly in a set of uh, classroom setup wherein 40 students are there, 40 students with different abilities, with different understanding. So these are two different things. So practically, I need to be trained how I can teach a particular topic in the class. Like it all
Right.
depends upon who are at the receiver side. And the B.Ed people, like those who are taking admission in B.Ed, also need to be very serious about each
Right.
and every.
So this we end the question and answer round. Okay. Yeah. I think I missed you somewhere. we will end the question answer round now, ma'am.
Sure, sure.
Yes. School Journal of Education and schoolreformer.com. Thank you for the talk and for patiently answering all the questions. This was a very different topic, and this is the first time somebody spoke about action research education. We also thank the audience for participating in the event. We will end the session now, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.